Hello, Ivy here. This week's podcast is entitled, Your Workforce Plan is All Wrong. As usual, let's start with context. This week's podcast is all about the monarchy and its lack of planning for the future. I refer to workforce in its most simplest and basic of forms because I am almost certain that the British royal family do not know what a workforce plan is, and if they do, they would not use one. At best, they would have documentation somewhere with the appropriate headings, but pay no attention to it. So the purpose of this podcast, and to find a way to give comments about the age profile, among many other things, of the promoted Magnificent Seven by UK media in various computations, as being the group to fill the role of Prince Harry, who stepped back from senior royal duties and removed his family and himself to a safer environment, and one which would be better for their mental health. Apparently stepping back from taxpayer-funded duties has put the monarchy at risk. Really? One person leaving an establishment means the business is going to fold? What were the rest of the seniors doing all these years? And at taxpayer expense? In their eagerness to appear as if nothing to see here, folks, and all is well, UK media have been going on ever since how they as a group, and at times the two least impactful duo within that group, are declared as saviours of the monarchy, or in some reports, the secret weapons. Let's have a simple meander through workforce planning and succession planning as part of the process. The marriage of Princess Elizabeth and Prince Philip Mountbatten took place on the 20th of November 1947 at Westminster Abbey. Queen Elizabeth was crowned on the 2nd of June 1953 at the same venue. Prince Charles was born on the 14th of November 1948, making him 73. Princess Anne, born on the 15th of August 1950. Prince Andrew, on the 19th of February 1960, and Prince Edward, born on the 10th of March 1964. The royal family are a family, but they are also referred to as the firm. This name dates back to the time of King George VI, Queen Elizabeth's father. The firm is an informal title for the British royal family and its associated institutions, including the courtiers, staff, and working royals that keep the business of the monarchy functioning. It is said that King George made the statement that he and the rest of the royals were not a family, we're a firm. The offices contain many departments, including those who manage finances and human resources. I will come on to the function of human resources imminently. This span of departments is officially called the Royal Household and is comprised of hundreds of workers. In the Oprah interview in March 2020, the distinction was made by the Sussexes between the family and the firm. It was clear that most of the issues originated from the firm, and I am guessing, therefore, that the couple made efforts to distinguish between a family and the firm when they interacted with certain people. It was clear that the interaction between the Sussexes and the Queen and Prince Philip was that of a grandson and his wife and his grandparents. Even now, when Harry refers to interactions across the pond, he refers to his grandmother, not the Queen. With that in mind, I have approached this podcast on the responsibility of the firm to advise its management of the plans they need to be in place moving forward, just like any business would do, i.e. have a strategic plan in place with policies that deliver that plan and identify the stakeholders that need to be consulted, liaised with, in terms of what they would like to see if possible, and then for the firm to work with professionals and specialists to have a rolling development plan towards the goals identified. Regular reviews in place so that the strategic plan and its objectives can be updated when needed in terms of delivery, which should lead to the desired results. Either the British royal family is, and always was, a poster family, like many of the TV schedules had in the 50s and 60s, that everyone was meant to admire and try to emulate in some way, or they are a bona fide business entity, which is allocated public funds and assistance, and should therefore provide the evidence where assistance is needed and why, and what is expected of them, as all consumers of services have the right to question quality, content and style of delivery, and where losses are made, look within first to find savings, and if not possible, prove the case to the government of the day via published accounts, real accounts, as to why more public funds are needed. Oh wait, silly me. That is what governments are for, and our taxes go towards. Tell me again, why does any nation need a monarchy? A hereditary monarchy is an additional burden to carry, and here is why. The royal family have no fear of not receiving public funds. They have no fear of facing any evidence of public discord about their performances, because they have up until recently been shielded, protected by the top-tier societal groups I have mentioned in many previous podcasts, which include the government of the day, its police forces and its media. I am 100% certain that there is no workforce plan in the firm, and I am equally certain that within the hundreds of employees, I can guess which levels the people of colour, the few of them that there are generally employed in, and I can guess where women are employed and within that group. I can guess the scales of salary paid, and there is no way that women of colour occupy substantial numbers of senior posts of all the females employed, and equally there will be very few women at the top of the organisational structure. The human resources personnel should be the lead on any workforce planning process and an accompanying workforce development plan. Knowing now that it was the HR department in regular contact with the same royal reporters, one in particular on film on 2 occasions, confirming discussions about Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex, and her state of health, her state of mental health, and the suicidal ideations, which is a serious breach of confidentiality and is a data protection breach, legally. So, I am not holding my breath to expect understanding of workforce planning, because if a plan exists, we would not be in the situation we are in now regarding the age group of the so-called working royals. That being said, let me go through the motions of what should have been done and what should have been predicted and planned for, and in so doing avoid the current state of affairs. The less sprightly and the unables left to fly the flag of the firm, which currently mirrors the state of the UK at the moment. A once bright and admirable member of the fleet, now fallen in grace and reduced to an unsteady vessel, with increasing holes appearing in its lowest deck, and an engine that is slowly grinding to a halt. All it has are a few oars and a few lifeboats, all of which have seen better days, and is unlikely to be able to travel to safer seas without assistance. It would require outside assistance to carry it forward. Why would the public pay even more to keep a group of unelected people in place when we have an elected forum for taking the country forward? It is called the government. They need to do their job or be voted out. There is no luxury of time to pay people who lack competence or foresight to be a family using public funds to masquerade as a business which also contains people who are not up to date with the requirements of a business and certainly should be under scrutiny for the public funds it receives to underperform anyway. Time for a change. Let me show you the basics, and I mean the basics, of a standard workforce plan and the strategy plan that comes from that process. In order to ensure understanding and competence, all those employed would need a development plan, as well as the organisation, and a range of development targets needed in each post to ensure compliance with the law. Failing that, vote for the elected members who you believe can do the job. And if they are unable, vote them out. Simple. Let's have a quick look at workforce planning toolkits and models. Workforce planning and development is basically understanding the workforce you have and the service delivery pressures the organisation, or in this case the firm, has. Over the last 20 plus years, much more is known about what needs to be done and how to go about it. There are a multitude of documents available now and many toolkits and templates to help organisations set out how they can find out what is likely to come their way in the future, and to ensure that their organisation is not caught off guard and is able to prepare for such changes. 95% of the models and toolkits out there will not apply in their entirety for the British royal family, and in my opinion, the firm will not understand 94% of it anyway, and would have next to no interest. I also suspect that because the British royal family appear not to like change, and also to choose topics that they have personal interest in to be included in the causes that they support, and suspect that they would not like to be told by any of their staff of a few possible ways to go about things in the future, and how they can be measured, and how to ensure that the new way of doing some things would be based on changing needs of the country, not just carry on doing what they have always done. I will list some of the many resources out there together with case studies so that you can get a better understanding of what it entails and the details you can choose to go into in order to benefit large or small organisations. There are hundreds of graphics used to explain the process, and I will include some in the podcast presentation along with additional ones in the accompanying article. The best place to start is to look who delivers the service to the clients and customers, and then to explore the needs of both and their current capacity to carry out those duties now and in the future. The next section will come across and we'll talk about over a course of a few minutes in the podcast is knowledge of the existing workforce. One of the first areas to examine is to look at a workforce supply, including the age profile and the likely dates in the future where they will be less visible or unable to carry out the volume of tasks required in quite the same way. In the case of the firm, it would and should include the household staff, all of them. No one should feel that they have a job for life. One of the things that I object to hearing from royal pundits is that the Queen declared right from the start that she was going to be Queen for life. And the royalists were such happy souls and described it as dedication to the role. I would argue that it is selfishness to put oneself first in such a position rather than what is best for the country. It is a lovely soundbite phrase to put in all the media at the time and to continue to keep repeating it every decade. And now we have a jubilee about to take place to celebrate the 70 years since the Queen has been the sovereign of the UK. The next two in line are far from popular, and one could argue that the second in line has not been prepared in any way in terms of skills and experience, other than being told and treated like he's made of glass, that he's special and that he will be king one day. The first in line was told the same things, and spent, it seems, vast amounts of time with people other than his parents as he was growing up, including a 6-month stint when his parents were required to be on a royal tour. It seems a variety of staff were responsible for much of his upbringing, and in terms of staff, Prince Charles was very close to his uncle, Lord Mountbatten. There are a whole host of activities that would suggest that that may not have been the best person for a young man, let alone a future king to be fraternising with. But if we use the same split in terms of identity used earlier in this podcast, perhaps uncle was better to a young child growing up in that environment than a member of staff, i.e. making the distinction between the firm and the family. In reality, Charles and William and George, if there is still a monarchy, were and will be prepared for kingship from day one. They are raised to feel entitled and privileged from the beginning, and told that they are better than their siblings. The spares are there to provide support to their older sibling, and there is no concept of a spare ever leaving the fold. The spares are targeted for distraction stories because the heirs and their spouses must never be seen in a bad light. And also, where there is discord within the great British public, it appears that those cosseted individuals are not informed in any kind of detail of such things, and if anything is seen in the media that is not favourable, evidence is removed within hours. One has to question what kind of state is the UK these days. Our leaders like to criticise other nations for doing similar, albeit in much more prevalent ways. Nevertheless, the UK does it too, but it is just not talked about. To his credit, Prince Charles knew he would have a long wait before becoming king, so he involved himself in charities and causes, some of which, like the Prince's Trust, remain very successful to this day. The second in line appears to just enjoy life, because the job would be his one day anyway, and there are people on hand to do bits and pieces now, and no doubt there will be staff to do things when he becomes king. That is my assumption. I have no evidence of that. It is just my observations and the conclusions that I have reached. The evidence is there that there is not yet one completed project set up by any of the Cambridges. Not one. It was all fun and giggles when the Duke of Sussex was part of that trio, and they came under the banner of the Royal Foundation. Since the split, the completed projects have moved with the Sussexes, and all have measurable outcomes matching their objectives. even Meghan, with her limited time behind the gilded gates of the royal properties, delivered on every single one of her projects, 2 of them within her first year, and they are all continuing to deliver today. True to form, the Queen and Prince Philip ensured that there were spares brought into the world to add as a safety net if anything ever happened to Prince Charles in the line of succession, and if he had no children of his own. Once Charles got married, in true royal tradition, he and Princess Diana set about creating their own heir to the throne and a spare. I truly dislike this name given to royal siblings of the heir, but I have to use it in this current context. So, Prince William arrived on the scene and became the second in line. And once Harry was born, Princess Anne, Prince Andrew and Prince Edward all got moved further down the line of succession. Once Prince George was born to William and Kate, he became the third in line, and with each child born to the second in line, all the others got moved further down. The whole system is cruel and divisive to siblings. The eldest is the heir or high in the line of succession, and the rest have their lives mapped out for them. And basically, they are there to support their older sibling and to be a general support for the royal family. If any of them had any ambition about what they hope to do in life, they learn very quickly. Just accept your allocated role and enjoy the lifestyle that many people would love to have. The fact that Harry and Meghan chose to walk away from what many people covet added salt to their wounds, because it was seen as a rejection of the lifestyle funded by UK taxpayers to leave the fold, fight off the backlash from the family via its media, and to even dare to go out on their own and earn their own money and have control over their lives, including controlling the narrative on their lives. The Sussexes are no longer the whipping boy or girl for the British royal family, and they are free to do what they want and earn their money how they want and employ competent people who are used to working to deliver measurable results. A large part of a workforce plan is information on the current workforce, and in this instance it means the royal family as well as the household, otherwise known as the firm. Another major section of the workforce plan is age distribution, again across the royal family and across all of the royal household, all grades, all roles. There would be a retirement analysis. Basically, whatever heading it's given in any respective workforce plan within an organisation, it basically looks at, as it says, the age profile of its workforce. It would look at those members of staff who are approaching state retirement age and what year that will be and what month that will be. They may not leave if they don't want to and there is work for them and people want them to remain there, that's fine. But you use the state pension retirement age as your guide. So you will look over a span of 5 to 10 years who is due to reach retirement age and when. Once you've got that, you then break it down into the months, as I said, but initially you're looking at the years. So if, for example, in one department you have 2 people out of 10, say, that will approach state retirement age in the same year. The following year, you have 4 in that team due to reach state retirement age. So from an employer perspective, you will have 5 people over the course of those 2 years who potentially could leave if they so wish. You then have to go into more detail about the work that they do, who they work with, who they liaise with, who they need information from, who do they have to supply information to, all those. So you really go into the detail of their job and the amount of training that was required to do that job efficiently. So then you will have 5 people missing from your group of currently 10 staff. And that's what leads to further on in the workforce plan, where you look at training and development for each of your members of staff. Training is to ensure that you are competent in the job that you're employed to do. Development is to develop your skills into the kind of roles that you have expressed interest in. The type of career that you're looking for, hopefully within the same firm, but it may not be, but it's about your aspirations of the kind of roles that you see in your current organisation that if you have the opportunity further down the line, you'd like to be in a position to apply for. So you're not just going to be given training on the job that you do. As much as you need that, that's important, that's a priority. But if you want people to progress through the organisation, you have to work with them in terms of what can you do to help prepare them to put themselves in a position where they could fill an application form in some years down the line. So that's when we talk about training and development. That's the difference. And you start to plan and you start to see what funds will be required, what training can be done in-house. Can they shadow somebody? Do they have to go somewhere to a college, for a few hours a week, something like that? Those kinds of things. But you start to plan that and you plan it around the budget that's available for you to do so, because everyone can't go off on training at the same time. Not everyone can go and be developed or even want to be. So it's going through the detail. You would also look at things like length of service and the grade profiles for particular roles. Senior roles may be occupied by older staff who are due to retire soon, and there may be a lack of suitable replacement in sufficient numbers. Worth exploring previous patterns of growth and high recruitment and look at where staff are concentrated in certain age groups. For example, there may be a concentration of young people in senior roles, which cause blockages for young people on lower grades looking to progress in their career, which can lead to high turnover. So you do make a note of where there is high turnover. Is it a particular grade? Is it a particular department? Is it a particular team? So the themes start to emerge when you go through the statistics. So length of service distribution, gender. Data on gender is more useful when used with collecting other indicators. So gender on its own doesn't tell you that much. But if you put gender with things like career progression, analysis of who works full-time, who works part-time, and so on. So it's a range of indicators, and I said I'm keeping this at a very simple level just to give you an idea of the kind of things, how simple you can make it, and how detailed it has to be in certain organisations, so public sector, NHS, those type of areas. You have to be very, very precise, and you can literally, your workforce plan is about an inch thick. It's just pages and pages and pages of data. That's all I'll say about it for now. As some of you know, that is one of the roles that I had in HR, and I had a team of workforce planners. So those are the kind of things that we would do and split off into departments and teams, and then come back and bring the whole corporate plan together. When we look at the above bullet points and then apply this to the royal family, it is plain to see that there is a major problem. A problem that could be seen 3 to 4 decades ago, but one which everyone seems to have ignored, hypnotised by the idea that the Queen will be the longest reigning monarch. In order to keep this vanity ambition going, the first in line is ageing faster than his mother, and his health is certainly not much better than hers on appearance. So it remains to be seen who outlives whom. And if he does make it to the throne and becomes king, the possibilities of him living into his 90s are not certain. None of us know that. The second in line is eager to jump into the seat. Someone who is not popular, as he has discovered recently, and I think it came as a big surprise, almost on a par with his father, but with far less competence and experience. The second in line has wanted the title from as long as I can remember. My guess is he loves the power and the title, but will expect others to do most of the work, and he will be the figurehead. That's my personal opinion, and I stand by it. If Prince Harry was there, he would have been the workhorse behind the scenes, whilst the king took the glory. And Harry would have no life of his own, just like his childhood. Harry would have been William's footstool, until the Cambridge children came of age and could take on duties. The impact of workforce planning, or the lack of it in this case. The practice of waiting for the leader to die before someone else takes over is a practice that has no place in a modern business or a structure such as a monarchy. People brought into the world merely to fill a role, or to be the footstool of the one who is automatically allocated the top role because of the order of birth. And all the siblings that follow are there to serve the firstborn. In the UK, we now have the next in line who has been effectively waiting for all of his 73 years to be the next monarch. All sounds better on paper than it actually is. As I've said, Prince Charles looks far from healthy, and I do not see him being at full capacity into his 90s. We shall see. I am not a medical person. The other train of thought is, why not miss out the first in line and go straight to the second in line? This presents different concerns. Yes, he may be 3 decades or so younger, but he has next to no experience. He has just been told from the earliest age of understanding that his role will be to prepare to be king, and Harry will be there to support him. The second in line had no fear of having no experience or not possessing the range of skills that his father had at his age, because he had a very able brother to do all the heavy lifting. None of the royalists appeared to worry either, because no one is ever meant to leave, and if you do, it is akin to trying to leave a cult. Most fail, and those that have usually take their own life or suffer extreme mental trauma from the experience of being hunted down, and the cult members who are taken back are then watched even more. The royal family is very much the same thing, although many out there refuse to admit the similarities. Right now, there is another monarchy with someone who tried to get away, and after a few months is now back in the fold, supposedly in a medical unit, on the premises, and rarely seen by the children, and even less so by the public. People in the UK need to open their eyes and really see what has been going on since 2016 and how it has been ramped up since 2020. No workforce planning has been done. My assumption. There has been no workforce planning No thought about the ageing profile of the working members of the British royal family. Just an assumption that Harry would be there to support William, and that Charles would be on the throne by now. Slight possibility with his mother in the background giving guidance on a few things that her eldest son may need a bit of help with, etc. Instead, the Queen is sticking to her word of never abdicating from the post. Death will be the only way her son takes over. With successful business out there, even the small family businesses out there wait for their chief executive to die before they allow the next one chosen to be the CEO to step into the role. Alternatively, the companies start to look for a new CEO and have them waiting in the wings for a few months to acclimatise and then to step into the role knowing what they need to do. It is almost certain the outgoing family member will not be frail and in their 90s. The Jubilee celebrations is another event that has been done to stroke ego. Yes, the Queen has reigned for 70 years, but apart from refusing to leave, what has she done? Yes, she was a steadying force when her father died. Elizabeth became Queen in her 20s, had her first child really quickly, and so the heir was born, and then went on to have Princess Anne, who at the time women could not be considered as the next in line, and then Andrew and Edward. As it happened, there was pressure on Charles to find a wife and produce an heir, so his friendly nature with a variety of women had to come to an end. The secret of his married lover would appear in the public domain years later. So William and Harry arrived from the union of Charles and Diana. This adherence to not straying outside the strict rules of keeping within the same family line, firstborn and then the firstborn of the firstborn, so on. Just imagine if Charles had never married, or had no children, and something happened to him. Just think, Andrew would have been the next in line to be king, and his two daughters would be famous around the world, and the eldest would be in line to be the next queen. Hereditary monarchies are a lottery, and the people who lose when it goes wrong is the country. Just look at how the British royal family imploded when Harry walked away and took his family with him. Look at the stresses showing on William's face since his footstool has moved. I'm not saying that's his only problem, but that's one. Look at the helpers who have been dusted off and polished in an effort to make them look stately and helping out. Most of the Magnificent Seven are close in age to Charles, or others are near to reaching state retirement age. None of them can read a room, and I suspect that the courtiers are similar in age, and definitely cannot read a room. At a time of austerity, and the UK forecast to have a recession before the end of this year, and increasing numbers of people struggling to buy food or heat their homes this winter, and many retired people suffering on both fronts, now is not the time to have a 4-day or even a 1-day Jubilee party by very affluent people celebrating someone refusing to leave her post. And out of respect for an elderly person's wishes, the propaganda machine is in full swing for the whole country to go without essentials, being seen to be respectful to the Queen. I don't know why the family could not have celebrated in one of the properties that we pay for already, and all the food and drink at such a party we pay for too. But it would be a drop in the ocean compared to what this 4-day of indulgence represents, and all the fighting and arguing in the lead up to it. If the workforce includes the British royal family, it surely does not seem like any kind of planning has been done in terms of continuity. there is still the propaganda being spouted by the media clones that Harry leaving the working royals has caused it to almost implode on itself. According to one media hack, he is destroying the monarchy, and Prince Charles and William have so much work to do already, they cannot take on any more. Well, if that is the case, then it begs the question, what are the rest of them doing all this time? If Harry stepping down from the institution causes the monarchy to collapse on itself, then it speaks volumes about the lack of strategic thinking when it was decided that the Queen could just carry on until she is called elsewhere, and the Cambridges could swan about for 10 years, and in William's case, officially have 2 part-time jobs at one point, neither of which, I understand, did he apparently spend the required hours with anyway. Seems like something that looks good on paper and sounds plausible when explaining his lack of projects. Royal reporters were quoted as stating that Prince William is on a different path to Harry, so he can't undertake the volume of duties that Harry manages to do. My perspective is it would be good to see one completed project from each of the Cambridges after 20 years, and as things stand, the UK does not even have one completed project between them. The UK monarchy is woefully unprepared for what is imminent, and the next 2 decades are going to be rocky. And that is if they actually last that long. For the record, in a few lines, this is what basic workforce planning is. The definition of workforce planning is the process an organisation uses to analyse its workforce and determine the steps it must take to meet current and future staffing demands. It also involves determining the most efficient and cost-effective methods to recruit and retain talent. As I touched on earlier, in the steps that a successful business undertakes, it looks at the age as well as the skills of the workforce and anticipates and plans for when those people are no longer in the workplace. A quote to this effect: "Conducting a skills gap analysis will provide valuable future workforce data." For example, a skills gap analysis would indicate when an employee plans to retire. Instead of scrambling to replace the retiring employee, the skills gap analysis would have provided sufficient time for human resources to prepare. Somehow, end of quote, somehow, I don't envisage Royal Human Resources would know where to start with the royal household, never mind the royal family itself. I have provided quite a few reference sources about workforce planning, links that take you to sample templates and guides of how to go about it if you ever embark on something like that. And I said they're in simple form, so they can be done with small businesses as well as large corporations, and you add on the areas that you've seen fit. Many of them are referred to as step models, whether they be 5 steps, 6 steps, 7 steps, that kind of thing. But they all will cover at heart the same things. There will be variance, but you get an idea about the factors that successful organisations use in some way as a framework for their planning and assessment and evaluation, and finally a review of approach based on the results that you get from year to year. There are a host of images, particularly in terms of templates and guidelines from different organisations, and all of them, there are links in the reference sources for you to explore each of those, either consultancies, but that also contain case studies for you to read through from start to finish and how it worked out for the various clients that they had. so afraid that I've put a quote from 2020 in an article that was in one of those reference sources, and it says, "A rapidly ageing workforce and a growing need to upskill people make succession planning, and therefore the use of succession planning tools increasingly important. In the US, no less than 10,000 baby boomers turn 65 every day, a phenomenon that is expected to last another decade." End of quote. Just to give you the scale, just from those few lines, of the need to have some kind of framework to plan ahead and to prepare the workforce that you will need to deliver those things. And where you can't employ extra people, we're all on economic hard times now, it's about the things that you do now that you will not be able to continue doing in the future. Which ones of those are you going to drop? So there are some that you will have to do because they're legal requirements in certain types of businesses. So those are at the heart of what you have to do. Everything else on top of that is surplus, it's extra. Nice to do, but you don't have to do it. And the fact that you do it now and have done it for the last 50 or whatever years does not mean to say that you will be able to do that in the future, because you will not always be given, like you are at the moment in terms of the royal family, extra funds every 2 years if you can prove that you need it. That's not how the rest of the businesses around the world, not just in the UK, manage. They have to tighten their belt. They are struggling. They're under pressure. There is no reason why our royal family should still get extra. Just none. They should be doing what others have to do, deciding what things they will stop doing because they have less bodies available to go out there and liaise with these people. And I'm giving them the benefit that this is what they call work. They might just go and have a coffee. I don't know. But let's go with the flow. They're working. So if you have a set amount of people that are going to go out and work with, liaise with charities, small organisations, whatever you want to call them, and on paper you've each got, 4-figure sums, already, even now, nobody's going to see all of their patronages and charities in a year. No one is going to see them all. There is going to come a point where people need to start quoting realistic figures, realistically, where you can go and make a difference, not just a wave and a handshake. That's how it used to be done. That's not what's required. And unless your customers and clientele in the country tell you otherwise, they need to start listening to what charities are looking for. And it's not just a wave and a smile. That's all I'll say on that front. During the last section section, if you like, of this podcast, and certainly in terms of the article drawing to a conclusion, this particular part of it is headed Lessons Never Sought or Taken on Board. The age profile of the so-called Magnificent Seven, the Queen, Charles and Camilla, William and Kate, Edward and Sophie, is beyond critical stage. Anne has high work figures in the annual accounts, but I never see her referred to as being part of this group of 7. Saviours, the 7 saviours in the media. She does her thing, whatever that is, and her figures are high. And whatever it is, I'm absolutely certain it produces more and is more effective than, with the exception of the Queen, the rest that are included in that Magnificent 7. But that, again, is my personal opinion. Let's not go further with that. In fact, the actual outputs of the senior royals are not generally measurable anyway. So at this stage, I am not sure what their contribution is. That's something that has been said more than once by myself when I've gone through the very sort of helicopter view of the accounts each year. I haven't done it this year because what's the point? I will. I've saved all the documents, but I haven't gone through them. They're not measurable and they're very vague, and it needs to change, but we'll see if that happens or not. So you've got the Magnificent Seven and you've got Anne. The media tried it for a few days when they attempted to devalue Meghan's work and tried to suggest in the press that Kate was somehow involved and the successes were all down to her. That poor humour, as it definitely was not factual, only lasted for another 24 hours, when Sussex Squad attributed all manner of life-saving, mind-blowing acts all around the world, and the squad praised Kate the Saviour for all of these achievements, and the squad developed a particular hashtag. Every piece written was accompanied by at least one image of Kate hard at work. UK media soon realised their folly, along with their crassness for going there in the first place, because all it did to the individual concerned was highlight the fact that not one achievement can be recorded anywhere for the Experience's senior royals, and that fact has not changed even now. We are in 2022. The British royal family is not in a healthy state. The sad thing about all of this, none of these individuals have suddenly landed on Earth in the last few years. The country and its government just expected the Queen to be at least 100 or so. And when she was no longer with us, her eldest son, Prince Charles, would just take over. Zero thought given to the age profile of the royal family senior members over the last 40 years. A childlike assumption that when one person goes, you just plug in another one. Yet when Harry stepped back with his family, he was accused of putting the monarchy in jeopardy. The same media who abused, stalked and harassed the Sussexes, particularly Meghan, were the same ones who took no responsibility for Harry and his family leaving and filled their tabloids with even more venom than the previous 4 years. Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex, joined the family in 2018 but was not recognised as family or an employee. Receipts exist for that statement. Yet during the 2 years Meghan was with the British royal family, the projects that she worked on and delivered were above and beyond any outputs of 6 out of the 7 seniors who are being paraded in the media as saviours now. I have seen not one iota of evidence that anyone, apart from the Queen, understood the assignment, and that is someone who is carrying the others, when she should be able to take a back seat now and not have to worry about what the children are doing unsupervised. It begs the question, what is the use of the monarchy post-Queen Elizabeth? There is no workforce planning or succession planning. I have serious doubt that up-to-date policy and procedures exist for a whole range of things. It seems to me, and I say this is my personal opinion, reached over many decades of watching this show unfold over the years, that it is a juggernaut that has always been there, and being there gives royalists comfort. It allows them to forget or ignore facts and truly look at what place or rationale is there to continue this setup. Either it runs like a business, with clear objectives, not sound bites, independent scrutiny of its accounts and compliance with the laws of the land, like every other business has to do. One could argue that there is a body that is elected to do those things, and if they do not do it in the satisfaction of the nation, they can be voted out. The monarchy has over 1,000 years of history. Be proud of it if you wish, Continue to enjoy the history of it if you wish, but honestly ask yourselves, where is the place for such an institution in a modern society today? If we are going to have one, then there needs to be a complete revamp of the way it operates. And people just being born into positions that are not accountable to the British people is not the way forward. The British royal family is losing its appeal by the day, and those who support such an institution are in the age group of 70% of the Magnificent Seven. The remaining 30% of the British royal family have no achievements to their name, and as a nation we should be looking beyond justifications such as he has waited so long, he deserves it, or miss him out and choose the younger person. As if age alone makes the monarchy assumed to be in safe hands. Someone who may be younger but is only lined up for a top position because of his parentage. I repeat, no modern society needs a monarchy. Harry leaving did not put the monarchy in jeopardy. It just exposed to the world the weakness of the others. Even if all of the seven were like top-performing executives with lots of ideas and high productivity with measurable outputs, the fact remains that the British royal family is on life support, and the lights are going out in terms of popularity. The Queen has the respect of royalists and large swathes of the British population. But make no mistake, none of the 6 remaining have that kind of following or support, and the age group of the support base will be visibly reducing each year, with new supporters being nowhere near enough to replace the older age groups. UK, you have a problem. No one should be slotted into roles that they are ill prepared for, and worse, if they have swanned about for decades beforehand. At least Prince Charles decided to set up a range of projects for himself from his early 20s, and he has measurable outcomes for most of them. Unqualified people playing at being diplomat is dangerous, however, and just adds another factor why this should be elected personnel, run in an accountable manner with the right skills and competence and experience gained before they take on certain tasks. I just do not see any royal family as being around for many decades more anywhere in the world. If we have to have one, then some serious changes need to be implemented. That's the end of this week's podcast. The article will be out Monday late afternoon, early evening. Hope you found this interesting. I hope you explore some or all of the reference sources. Look forward to the chats in the comments. It's bye from Ivy for another week. Bye.